Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Donnie here, and I am ready to give you another installment in my classic TV Spotlight series. If you saw my previous video, I talked about The Twilight Zone and how that was a show that I grew up on and has been watching for 20 plus years. This next series I'm going to talk about, I had kind of the opposite introduction into it. This was a show I only recently got into, but I became an instant fan, and I highly recommend it. That show happens to be another 1960s sitcom called The Dick Van Dyke Show. Uh, my introduction to this show is actually kind of morbid. Last year, the creator, producer, and sometimes actor on the show, TV legend Carl Reiner, passed away, and as a tribute to him, they showed two episodes of the show. Now, the show was originally black and white, but these episodes were colorized, which was pretty cool. And I watched it on TV that night, and I was just taken aback with like how funny it was. Like Dick Van Dyke Show, it was a show that I was vaguely aware of. I may have seen bits and pieces of it, but I don't even know if I ever saw a whole episode before. But I just kind of knew of it, and I knew Dick Van Dyke. I was always a big fan of his, and he was just an absolute legend, and one of the greatest performers of all time. But I just, for whatever reason, never got into Dick Van Dyke. I don't remember if it was on Nick at Night when I was a kid watching it, or maybe it aired too late, like in the middle of the night, maybe after I went to bed. But I just never really got into it. But after I saw those episodes on that tribute, I realized how funny it was and how sharp and witty it was, and I just instantly became hooked and I started watching it. It's on every Sunday night on MeTV. It's on at 11 o'clock, where I usually go to bed before then, so I DVR it and watch it during the week. Uh, and, a lot of shows from that era, from the 1960s, a lot of sitcoms, the humor can be kind of hokey and a little corny, and uh, like there's a lot of wholesome TV, and in a future video I'm going to be talking about shows in the 60s and their wholesomeness and why they were that way, but um, that's for another day. uh, but Dick Van Dyke Show was so I was so impressed with how just sharp and funny and like quick-witted it was, and so that's why I want to like talk a little bit more about it. The show centers around a character named Rob Petrie, played by Dick Van Dyke, who is a TV comedy writer. He writes for the fictional Alan Brady show, of comedy variety show, and Carl Reiner himself actually plays Alan Brady. Now, early on in the series, Alan Brady is a unseen character. They only talk about him; you never see him. But then Reiner makes appearances later on in the series. On the So, in addition to Rob, he is flanked by his two other staff writers. There's Buddy Sorrell, played by Maury Amsterdam, and Sally Rogers, played by Rose Marie. And also joining them is the show's executive producer, Mel Cooley, played by Richard Deacon, who also happens to be the brother-in-law to the show star, Alan Brady. Um, Now, in addition to the workplace scenes, it's also a family sitcom. It centers around Rob's family life with his young son Richie, played by Larry Matthews, and his wife Laura Petrie, played by the legendary Mary Tyler Moore. So, apparently, this show, Reiner created this show based off his personal experiences. He got his start working as a writer for Sid Caesar, who had whose show, whose variety show, Your Show of Shows, aired in the 1950s. Now Caesar was notable for having two variety shows: first Your Show of Shows, and then Caesar's Hour. And what was notable about those shows were the amount of talent on the writing staff. Like the writing staffs of these shows went on to have big time careers. Like some of the people who worked for, in addition to Ryder, were Mel Brooks, Neil Simon, Woody Allen, Larry Gelbart, who created MASH, as well as numerous others who went on to big careers. You look at like all these like Oscar winners and nominees and Emmy winners and nominees. It was really incredible. And Reiner, kind of based it off of based his this series off his experiences. And actually, the character Buddy Sorrell is said to be modeled after Mel Brooks. And if you're familiar with Brooks and you watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, you can kind of see the similarities there. Um, so with this show being about a comedy writer, it definitely like gives way for a lot of material. Because like some scenes, it just showed, it would just show Rob and Buddy and Sally in the writers' room, just brainstorming ideas and throwing out jokes, and getting into the process of the, their creativity. And so it just was like it was instant humor. Like they could just be talking about something they're going to put on the show and then act out the scenario, and it was very fun. It was very funny. Um, that I wonder if some of the material is like from Reiner himself. Maybe it was something that from his writing days, a sketch idea that he had that never came to fruition, and now was his second chance at this. Was became very interesting. There's several running jokes, one of which is the kind of back and forth sparring between Buddy and the producer Mel. Buddy is always making fun of Mel, like for being the star's brother-in-law, and making jokes about his weight, and but most importantly, he's making jokes about his lack of hair and calling him bald. And I saw an episode recently where they mentioned that Mel is at the barber, and Buddy uh, with his quick one-liner says, "Cooley at the barber. What is he doing? Reminiscing?" And I found that incredibly funny. Another running joke is Sally and how she's the perpetually single friend, and she can never find the right man. And anytime someone mentions a man, she'll instantly chime in with, "Oh, is he single?" Or "Oh, does he have a brother?" And so on and so forth. And it just be and and that has some funny moments, but also it's played some seriously at times as well. It's like she may get stood up on a date or get dumped by her boyfriend, and so it's not. So it gave some emotional depth, and also in addition to this, the family life scenes are also very very funny. Um, and very relatable. Uh, as you see, they have they deal with parenting issues and marriage issues, and and but it's always treated with respect. And one thing I was impressed is like there's not too much like misogyny or sexism. Not Rob and Laura have a great mutual respect for each other, and he value and he val seems to value her, and treat and they treat each other well, and they talk things out and they come to an agreement. So it's definitely an example of a healthy marriage. And it's funny how you have like these two worlds in this series, the work worlds and the home life, and how they are evenly split almost. Like there's workplace sitcoms, and and they may have scenes with them at home, but it's never, but it's still a traditional workplace sitcom. And then you have family sitcoms where they may show some scenes with a character at work, but still it's a traditional family sitcom. This one is pretty much 50-50, and it spills over from one into the other, where you know Rob may bring issues from work home to him, or bring issues from home into work. There was one such episode. It's a notable episode on the show called "The Thing About Women," where Rob is dismayed that Laura keeps opening up his mail, and he decides to write a sketch about it for the show. And then when the show airs, Laura's watching it, and she's disappointed. She's kind of perturbed because she realizes that it was about what they just went through. And it leads to a very funny moment in their living room. Later on, I won't spoil it, but it's very funny. Um, so so I so again, it's just like it's just sharp and funny, and one great aspect, in addition to the great writing, there's some great physical comedy to it. Dick Van Dyke has been an excellent physical comedian. He said, I know, I remember hearing in an interview, he talked about how he's a fan of silent films and like Buster Keaton, and you could definitely see that the kind of physicality that Keaton and Charlie Chaplin and other silent films that where they couldn't rely on their one-liners and that for humor, and he does a lot. Does great use of his physical comedy. There's an episode where Rob gets hypnotized into thinking he's drunk, and he starts go and he's every time he hears a bell, he thinks that he's drunk, and it gets and starts just falling over, and it's incredibly funny. And there's one episode like I mentioned before about how they like will work out different sketches, and there's one where he comes in with a sketch idea that he performs for Sally and Mel, and it's pretty much all just physical comedy and going on, and it's just it's a joy to watch. And you can see, so there's something for everyone in this show. Great writing, great acting, and great physical comedy, and good some emotional moments, but it's never going to be confused for a dramedy. But it's just a nice overall show. This may not have been a show that I uh, grew up watching, but it's one that I'm glad that I found. It's a show that's was way ahead of its time, and the humor still holds up to this era. You know, and I think that proves how timeless it is. When you look at who's involved with absolute legends like Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, and Carl Reiner. I believe all three of them are members of the TV Academy Hall of Fame, as was another great as well as other great casts. It's won numerous Emmy awards. Everything. I believe both Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore won Emmys, and Maury Amstel and Rose Marie, I think, were both nominees, and as well as Best Comedy Series. All the work. So, uh, it's a show. It's a show that just has held up for so many years, and incredibly funny, and I highly recommend it. Maybe it's a show you've seen over and over again. So if you have, tell me what are some of your favorite episodes, your favorite moments in the show, or if you have some other shows you'd like to see me spotlight in the future. Just let me know. Leave a comment, and hit like, sub- like and subscribe. Appreciate it. All those works, and let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will be back here with some more videos, and make sure to stay tuned for them. So until then, take it easy.